So I'm going to start with Shaft, and bear with me for a second. I'm a big fan of John Singleton. I was looking forward to seeing Shaft, and then I read that John Leguizamo was supposed to play your part, and then you were replacing. I was a fan of yours, and I was going like, what the hell though? But he's now Latino. He's playing this part, and keep in mind that me being Panamanian, and I go to the movies, most actors use this generic Spanish accent for every role, whether you're Cuban, Puerto Rican, whatever. My mind went up when I heard you. You're playing a Dominican Republic, and it's so authentic. It's insane. Tell me about how did you work that out?
I hung out in Washington Heights. Washington Heights. Prior to that, this is where I got the voice from. I used to go to a men's club in Midtown Manhattan called the Lone Star Boat Club. It was started because the Lone Star Yacht Club wouldn't accept Jews. So this is a men's club. You go to shave, you can work out, you can swim in the pool, all this stuff, and it's mainly Jewish businessmen. But there was a younger set of actors and writers who joined because Jerry Orbach was a member. Walter Matthau had been a member. It was right around the corner from the Ed Sullivan Theater. I think Ed Sullivan might have been a member. You know, white tiles, old school place. And I started going there because it was close to the theaters. My friends were there, and I made further friends when I was there. You walk in, a bunch of guys playing pinochle, like half naked, sitting, just shooting the shit. And there was a guy who ran the place named Raphael, who was Dominican. And because most of the people were businessmen and I was doing theater, I was doing plays on Broadway, I would show up a little bit later, in the afternoon to, go there before getting to the theater at 7:30. And Rafi would say to me, Jeffrey, why you come so late? He said, you turning into a vampire, a vampire like Dracula with the fangs. And so, again, I love the music of dialogue, and that was his music, and that was Dominican music. And so when I got the part in Shaft, it was years, after I'd started going to this place, I actually had Rafi read the script for me, read my part. And I recorded him, and that was one step. And then literally I went up to Washington Heights. I was just wandering around, hanging out in Washington Heights. I went to this barber shop a few days before we filmed. It was quite a trip, this whole thing. I was at the barber shop, and I wanted him to be kind of vampiric. I wanted him to be, he's people's, he's man of the people's. I wanted him to be someone who could have been a solid citizen, but was not. And I kind of framed him off of kind of some of the like record executive types that we're seeing out there, at the time, and the whole thing, and the flash, but a guy who was completely on a path that, was a little bit self-destructive and destructive to anyone around him. But anyway, I went to the barbershop and listened to the guys in the barbershop, and I had this guy, I knew what I wanted. I had him, shave my beard and my hair and everything, and I just soaked in the language and the music and the rhythms and the stuff and the smells and the food and all of that, and just tried to embody it.
You alluded a little bit to the fact that this character has this complex moral compass.
Yeah.
You just think that he's just going to be this antagonist and a villain, but then all of a sudden you start finding out vulnerable moments, and you saw in that scene that he wants to, he wants to be like Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about, is that something that you developed with John, or it was?
No, it was in the script. Oh gosh, I forget who wrote the script. Oh, Richard. Oh my God. He wrote wonderful writer.
Clockers, didn't he?
Yes.
Richard. Somebody Google quickly.
Yeah, Google. So it was all in the script, and there were things that I tweaked. I would improvise and change things here and there, but it was there, and I think there was complexity to it, because of the idea. This is a guy freshly in the country, who there are barriers to his upward mobility, and so in some ways.
Thank you. Richard Price.
Yes, Richard Price. Yeah, I thought you were saying Wright. Yeah. But there were barriers to his mobility, and so he's in some ways forced to become that kind of monster that he is perhaps perceived to be anyway. So there's a lot of good stuff in there to play with.
It's, of all your performances, it goes up there in my book. It's phenomenal.
Well, thank you. Well, actually, you talked about Gary Oldman. Gary was an influence on me. When I saw Sid and Nancy, I was like, oh, wow, you thought you could go here. You can actually go there in terms of just emotional and psychological freedom, and so having the opportunity to work with Gary on Basquiat was a gift, but that performance in Basquiat doesn't happen in the same way without my having seen Sid and Nancy. And likewise, this performance, too, in terms of, yeah, we can go there, just bring it. And, he's a dangerous guy. And,
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then Angels in America, 10 years after you perform it on stage, you were the only performer from the original cast that got to do the film with Mike Nichols.
Yeah.
What was it like for you that all of a sudden you're the only cast member?
That was for two reasons. Amazing cast on Broadway. Ron
Liebman,
Marcia Gay Hart. I mean, just, incredible. Two reasons. One, I was the youngest, right? So 10 years had passed, and I still could play that role that I was, that I ended up playing and had played on Broadway. The other reason was that Mike came to see a play that I was in. He was thinking about casting another actor. He came to see a play that I was doing, Top Dog, Underdog, off Broadway at the Public Theater, and he changed his mind when he saw the play. He said, no, yeah, maybe I'm gonna stick with him. That was a wise decision on his part, because if he had not cast me in that role, there might have been some mysterious, unforeseen fires at Kaufman Astoria studio, because I'll tell you, that scene there.
Incredible scene.
So that scene didn't exist prior to the Broadway production. We were in rehearsal one day for Perestroika, the second part, and Tony Kushner walks in and he said, Jeffrey, I've written something for you. And he handed me that scene. And it just blew my mind. I was looking for something, as you said, to kind of, because there's this battle between that character, Belize, and Roy Cohn, and it needed another weapon. And he gave me that bit of incredibly potent lyrical poetry. And it was an incredible gift to me. I could not wait to do that scene on film when I was cast, because I wanted the opportunity to distill the performance down and play the language subtly, because it was so beautiful and such wonderful imagery and music that you couldn't really get all of it, perform all of it and do it justice on stage. But to do it on film was just a delight. And at the time, I was doing Top Dog, Underdog on Broadway while we were filming Angels in America, the film. So I would do that in the morning, and then in the evening, I would go to the stage. My son was about 2 years old at the time. I wasn't sleeping that much. There were nights on stage when I said to myself, please don't fall over. But so we filmed that scene, and I would leave the studio at around 6 o'clock to make it to the theater on time. And we filmed that scene, and we filmed Al's side of the scene first. And we got that, and it was about, maybe, I think about 5:15, 5:20 or something like that. And Mike said, okay, don't think we're gonna have time to turn around and do that your side, Jeffrey. We'll come back and do it tomorrow. And I was like, nah, because we were there, we had found the tone, and we were working really well together. And I said, just turn it around, it's not gonna take long. So he turned it around, he said, okay. He turned it around, and it took him 20 minutes or something, and we did 2 takes. We did one, and then another for safety, and then I went to the theater. Because I had had a lot of rehearsal. I was waiting to do that. But a year and a half on stage with it, I knew it inside and out. And that's.
What was it like? You have Mike Nichols behind the camera, and then you have Pacino as your dance partner.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason I would show up to the theater tired. Because, Roy Cohn is ailing and ultimately dying in this, but Mr. Pacino does not die easily. It was incredible. It was incredible. He wanted to rehearse so much prior to being on set. I would get a call. Yeah, Al wants to go rehearse. He's got a room up on 47th Street. He wants to, yeah, okay. Just rehearse. And it was wonderful. And I realized that he loves the process, maybe more than he loves the final thing. For him, the process of working on it and mining through it was just, that was it. It was, and Mike was, it was incredible. But again, I had a lot of rehearsal. For a year and a half, doing that play on Broadway, I had gone through every possible iteration and checked it with the audience, honed everything. I had, made all manner of choices. I knew what worked, what didn't.
And simultaneously, it just boggles the mind that you're on Broadway in a Susan Laurie Parks Pulitzer Prize-winning play and acting with Mos Def in one of the greatest plays, Top Dog, Underdog.
Yeah, while doing that one. Yeah, it was a good, a pretty good day. A day well spent, yeah. Really, the common denominator between those 2 pieces is George C. Wolfe, who directed
the original Angels in America.
Yeah. But I like a good story and I think I can recognize some good words on a page, and I've been fortunate over time to be able to do that. Yeah, that was a special time.
Let's take a look at moving on to Casino Royale, and also Cadillac Records, 2008, where you play Muddy Waters.